Hello, Prime Media audiences. This is Ladette, your host, joining you from Addis Ababa. I'm here with a very special guest, but not his first time. Jeff Pearce is here in Addis Ababa. Jeff, welcome again.
Thank you. You're three-dimensional.
Yes, we're finally
on the
here
screen.
Together.
This is awesome.
Yes, Jeff was on Prime Media via Zoom.
Yeah.
I guess your first Ethiopia interview.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I think you were the first.
This is the first interview that we did about a year ago now. Good God, time has...
Yeah. Time in war. So.
Yeah. Welcome to Addis. Now that I'm in Addis too, welcome. Yep. I'm so happy to meet you. It's great to have him at Prime Media. A lot has gone on. Jeff has been really busy. Good God, you've done a lot of stuff. Can you just say one or two things about some of the things you've gotten yourself involved in this whole year?
God, where do we start? Well, I took on the role of, it sort of expanded according to how people sort of invited me to participate, because if you recall, I went after the media, the mainstream Western media, hard because they were screwing up and also lying blatantly, as a matter of fact. So I went after them hard, and as that progressed, certain diaspora organizations invited me to come over to Ethiopia directly. Now I had to put put their money where my mouth was, because I have shifted for quite a while from doing journalism, which I used to do for years and years ago, to writing history books. Now I had to go back to doing really hardcore journalism. Probably the best, or at least the most direct, significant journalism I think I've probably ever done in my life. And that's not a brag on me, that's a credit to the urgency and exigencies of the story. So I went to my cadre, investigated that. I walked sort of in the footsteps of photojournalist Jamal Countess, because he really broke the story. But as somebody put it online, they said, gee, I think this is the first video report anybody's ever done on my cadre in English. And when I read that tweet, I went, oh my God, this might be right. Nobody's done this. Why not? And I also went to other locations to try to chronicle what was really going on. Since then, about 3 months passed since I was here in August. Yes, a lot happened, not always of my own achievement. We had the whole debacle of my digital recorder getting stolen at the airport. TPLF wanted to use it for their own purposes. It blew up in their face. It turned into a story which wasn't even my story. I reported the story in terms of what the UN whistleblowers told me, and I'm still hugely disappointed that not enough attention is paid to the core of that story, that the TPLF walked into the offices of UN staff and demanded the names of sexual assault victims and their safe houses. Why this is not, all of that was to try to create some nonsensical international criminal court case against Prime Minister Abiy. Why this is still not front page news is appalling. But that happened. Then in the interval before I came, we had the diplomats video, which was delightful because they incriminated themselves, been basically admitted on camera saying, how else can we basically kind of disrupt and destabilize a country? And they did it openly in a Zoom meeting. And we saw several, there was much effort to minimize that, when in fact...
Let me stop you right there, Jeff.
Yeah.
What are some of the efforts to minimize that? Because every time there's been any kind of evidence to show whether there is aggression on TPLF's part, or whether there has been international community interference, we obviously don't get to see those news on the mainstream media. We don't get to see that on, we don't get to see it on CNN and so forth. So But they obviously also still try to counteract that information. And how do they do that? Like, how has anyone reached out to you? Has anything come out from you releasing those information? Has there been any kind of setbacks for you, or what are the consequences of you coming up with something big like that? I mean, given that you're a Canadian citizen, it might not be as bad as anybody else, but...
Well, yes and no. The thing is, you have to appreciate that much of my income comes from books. I write books. So the thing is, they've gone after my books, but they're kind of stupid about it, because what they do is they go on Amazon and write nasty reviews. And the thing is, what I keep saying that nobody ever understands is, if you want to kill a book, the easiest way to do it is to ignore it. So every time they come after me and over my books, some people rally and go, hey, they're going after Jeff's books. Buy more of Jeff's books. Thanks, TPLF, you just increased my sales. So Naman Zalake actually led a Twitter campaign a while back to say, hey, they're going after Jeff's books. I've been relatively unscathed. They haven't done that in a while. I hope they don't, because it's stupid. It's ridiculous. And fortunately, my publisher is very understanding, and I've briefed them in terms of what's going on. But they have gone after other people. It is no secret they have gone after Anne Fitzgerald very publicly in terms of trying to get her removed from her position. They've gone after Bronwyn Bruton. They act like the Mafia. What are you doing talking about us? What are you doing saying these bad things about us? If you keep saying these bad things about us, we'll take away your job. And they're very brazen about it. And they think this is going to endear them to the world. Anytime you see an analyst who says something ridiculous, I came across something the other day. I was looking for something because I'm lousy at searching on Twitter. And I came across an old post, and the guy says, oh, well, this diplomat's video, there's nothing really to see here. Then why are you commenting on it? Why are you bringing it up? And the way to minimize that at the time was say, well, they're all retired diplomats. They're really not in the game. Well, that's nonsense. For ages, one of the standards of diplomacy in terms of back-channel negotiations was not to use your top guy, who has a very public persona, but was to get one of your old war horses and veterans and get him to go quietly, without a lot of fanfare, and go do the back-channel negotiation. It was when they started doing this, we made sure that we ran an extra clip from that video for which the American diplomat clearly implicated himself by saying to another American diplomat, hey, I've got the Defense Department wants such and such, I'm paraphrasing here. Can you come in and talk to me after this is over? They're clearly still in the game. So it's quite obvious. And as you watch the video, there's no effort to disguise. They're talking amongst themselves. They never thought that this would go publicly. So they're saying, well, we hope you do well. You know, we're cheering you on. And what else can we do to... You look at this going, you're talking about destabilizing a nation. And so everybody else who is on their side outside goes, oh, no, that's nothing. Of course it's something. Of course. Why else would they have the meeting? So... what you have is, you have efforts to delegitimize anyone who is a critic. You have efforts to dismiss anything in terms of evidence. We've seen the same thing in terms of, say, Micadra, in terms of the muddying the waters there by saying, oh no, both sides were at fault, or the casualties weren't as much as they're reported to be. If anything, the casualty and death list has gone up. And then you get into the nastier tactics, which are left to a few, which is character assassination. And then you get to the hardcore efforts, which is, let's try to get this person fired, or try to embarrass them, or in some cases, which I will not say the name, although you know what it is, to assassinate or remove that person. And I won't talk about that for their own safety, but you and I have discussed that, and we know that there are efforts to outright murder somebody who is bringing evidence to light.
Yeah. Well, so you have done a lot. You have uncovered a lot.
Or a lot has happened.
Or a lot has happened. And a lot has happened. I mean, since your visit here now, you've been, for here a couple of weeks?
I will be here 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah, that's a lot.
When I finally go home, yeah.
Yeah, and you've spent a good amount of time outside of Addis.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and what you have seen and witnessed.
I finally got to do what I've wanted to do for ages, which is we wanted to find out. I went with Jamal Countess, who was sponsored by ECNAS, APAC, the Rotary Club, which helped fund our trips, take us around. We wanted very badly, both of us, to find out what's the situation with the Lalibela churches. Are they okay? Nobody knew. UNESCO didn't even follow up while Lalibela was under occupation to say, hey, what's the state of our World Heritage Site? They didn't care, to the point where an Amhara association actually wrote to them and said, what's up, UNESCO? Why aren't you even paying attention to one of your own sites? We went there. I was not prepared for the devastation that I saw just in the town itself. It's just horrific. And before I forget, I need to get this in to people. There is still not enough food and water for people there. They have no power. They have no running water. I think they still have no Wi-Fi. These people need help. So hopefully that message gets out. In terms of the churches, what we found out was quite interesting. It was fascinating. The churches, on the whole, are fine. But because the TPLF parked their artillery close by, these are ancient monuments of volcanic rock, which means it's soft, relatively, in terms of the rock. You can't park artillery next to it, which is shooting off boom, boom, boom all the time, and not, do something structurally to these, monuments, these churches. And so the priests themselves are saying, hey, UNESCO, hey, scientists, will you please come and make sure these are okay? That's one issue. The other issue is TPLF, they just betrayed their complete bankruptcy of belief in their own ideology, because they didn't touch the churches. They knew they better not touch the churches. They did not raid the relics. They did not take the manuscripts. Those were all safe. But they tried in their own little way to defile them. There were TPLF soldiers who wanted to go in, and the priests, to their great credit and courage, said, yes, you can come in as a penitent person if you want to take, refuge here. Okay, fine. Leave the gun outside. And these guys said, no, we're not going to do that. Then don't come in. And they didn't. They backed down. Now that to me is amazing. And just the other night when I was in Gondar, a friend was telling me, I can only relate this as a retold story, not as reports, because I don't speak Amharic, as you know. But the priests there, at least one of them, if not more, showed incredible courage and generosity in making sure that people were fed. Muslims, residents of Lalibela, got food rations, what they could spare. They took in people, they protected people. When the time comes and all these stories come to light, it's going to be something inspiring and moving to hear in terms of that. On the other side of the coin, I have to tell you that the damage done to Lalibela in terms of the town is horrific. The admin office is destroyed. The police station is destroyed. They went out of their way to wreck every major hotel in the area. They just would raid the liquor contents, then they would get off to the safes. It's just, they've set back a community 10 years, and it's the same in Afar, it's the same in Desi.
And how was your trip in Afar?
Afar was something I've wanted to see for quite a while, because these are unique, courageous people. They didn't ask for this. They're minding their own business. There's no doctrine where, oh, the Amhara elite, or they have nothing to do with this. If anything, historically, Tigrayans would loot the Afar region back in the 1700s, 1800s, when Tigray had famine or other economic hardship, Tigrayans would loot Afar. That's a fact. You can go look it up in Bauro Zuda's A History of Modern Ethiopia, which is where I got it from. In Afar, they have slaughtered, the TPLF have slaughtered livestock to the point where they're going to need replenishment of livestock. The TPLF went and took the traditional mats, which protect Afar households, and they use them to cover their artillery. These are people's homes. They use these as an ingenious method to protect them against the elements, and you just strip them of that. They don't have a house anymore. All you got is this structure of wood, or whatever the main, I think it's wood, that's the main structure. What are they going to do? And the UN gives them this crappy plastic sheeting, which doesn't even come close to doing the job. So there's that. We went to Darsa Gita, where they destroyed a good portion of the mosque there.
This is in Afar?
This is in Afar region, okay. Darsa Gita. Just wall-to-wall devastation, where they wrecked a school. They used it as a barracks, left cigarettes, beer cans, other crap all over the, they deprived them of school, wrecked it. They went to a food sort of compound building and made sure they spilled everything out that they couldn't take. And you're just looking at this going, this is just, your jaw drops, because you're looking at all this devastation on people who did nothing to you, weren't looking for a fight, didn't ask for a fight, and now there's something like, I think 1.3 million Afars displaced in this conflict. And so the Western world goes, why can't you have more access through the road going through the Afar region to Tigray?
It's so sad to hear that all this devastation has taken place. And where obviously you didn't get to travel to Tigray and see what's going on over there.
I would if I could.
I know you would if you could. But let's just...
Oh, and by the way, in the future, just watch me. You just watch me, because I'm coming. Sooner or later, I'll be coming.
I know I would love for you to go there. Let's just say the damages or the issues equate to the same as what the other regions that you've seen. There's looting, there's obviously damages to buildings and so forth in the same way in the region of Tigray, and that's probably why TPLF and their supporters are doing the same looting in Afar regions. It's a sort of like a revenge type of thing, or however.
Well, they're making the Tigrayan people, well, they're a victim as much of the TPLF as anybody else in the region.
Yep.
That has to be underlined. So. Yep,
they're the victim. But what my issue is, what is the underlying reason for this fighting? Is it what is all this fighting for? What is all this looting for? What is all this damage for? This is all to bring TPLF back to power, or is it to make sure that their power mongering is respected, or what? Looking back, how the country has suffered for a whole year. What is really going to, make sure that we have to continuously preach to Ethiopians, the Ethiopian diasporas and so forth to unite us? Because when you hear about areas being affected like this, and for those who have families affected in those regions, this is very painful.
Every day is an education. Every day I learn something new, which is helpful. If you actually take an attitude of humility and go, I don't know everything, then you can learn. And so I've wrestled with this same question, and this is where I'm going with this, is of course you ask yourself, and I've stood in the Desi hospital, which, as I've said on camera, you could take that hospital, you could park it in downtown Boston, you could have taken it to Toronto. It was state of the art. It had an oxygen plant. You could go to Wallow University, they had a COVID plant. TPLF stole the COVID plant. They just destroyed millions of dollars of wonderful equipment that they had. Beautiful university. And then so you ask yourself, why? Why is this going on? And then you have to go, okay, I gotta go back and learn. And, you know, the Afars tell you that the TPLF have been basically sucking the region dry for 30 years, basically ripping off these people in terms of profits of the salt industry there, rerouting the tourism industry to Mekelle. There's no need. Why would you? Why don't you just put in Samara, base it there? Going after them that way. And then you go, what is all this for? What is it all about? And as near as I can figure it, this is and I always work on a tentative conclusion, and as I get more facts, I adjust my view. This is a war on Ethiopia itself, as a culture, as a national entity, as its existence. What else can be the explanation? TPLF, from its founding documents, says our enemy is the Amhara. The TPLF think they're the God's gift to creation in terms of a superior type of person. They literally have a TV program where I watched the clip, as we've talked before, where they claim that Tigrayan culture is responsible for ancient Egyptian culture, Nubian culture, Mesopotamian, and I have to laugh. But part of it is sad because you're going, oh my God, where are you getting this from? It's ridiculous. And there's nothing to say that that's not to criticize Tigrayan culture, the legitimate Tigrayan culture. You have, you know, you can go back to Axum if you want, which isn't technically Tigrayan. You can go, okay, Tigrayan culture from here. But please don't tell me that you invented, the culture of ancient Iraq or Egypt. It's nonsensical.
I think we have that in every culture in Ethiopia, by the way, like in every ethnicity,
I hope not, because it's absurd. It
pretty much is. It's pretty much, I mean, different stories. I'll say that, okay, this might be the story that you heard, but then would it be another ethnic group that will tell you they were, born to lead and they were, they're the most educated one, or then one will tell you they're the most victimized and then tell you at the same time they're the hero of the country.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference. As I read Ethiopian history, and as I say, when I get new facts, I adjust my view. All of your different cultures work together to form Ethiopia. Johannes IV was a Tigrayan. This guy pretty much decided the national flag. He decided Amharic would be the language of the land. He's a Tigrayan. Haile Selassie had a Oromo mother. Menelik had Garagi roots. Go on and on. If every culture says, and yes, the British and French do that too, where they go, we're wonderful. But they weren't Nazis who said, let's kill everybody else, which is what Nazis in Germany did. They said, these Jews are evil, let's exterminate them, and let's wipe out their businesses, and let's suck this dry. You didn't have, the British. The British would do that. And you had colonial empires would do that. But I don't see this in terms of examples of other Ethiopian cultures where, yes, you had colonialism. It was an Ethiopian empire. But we're talking about a dangerous ideology which purports just outright sensational fictions today, which are ridiculous just on the face of, I just dealt with 2 Egyptologists for the latest book. It doesn't even pass the laugh test in terms of claiming that ancient Tigrayan culture would have an influence on ancient Egypt. It's farcical. All of this is to give you a foundation in which to inflict your will and to try to destroy other people. That's not what history is for. And conquer. This is not what history is for. This is not what scholarship is for. This is not what we teach people in school. That's not why we teach history. You can have pride in a country. There's lots to be proud of in Ethiopian culture. You have amazing achievements in economics, in architecture, but they're shared. They're shared among the different peoples. They would have to be. As we just had lunch. And what did I mention? I said in the 1700s, they were speaking Oromo, Afan Oromo, at the court, at the imperial court. There you go. Not Amharic, not Tigrinya, or Alpha and Oromo. That gives you a perspective right away back to the 1700s on where things were. And then you can go through. So why do they, for me, as I interpret the current situation, this is a war on you guys. This is a war on who you are and what you're about. Why else? They didn't touch the churches, the Lalibela churches, but they have wrecked certain other things. We passed a monastery on our way there, which was shot up by artillery. We see a mosque destroyed. I don't know too many of the, I just blanked out the word, Jewish temples. They're in Ethiopia.
Synagogue,
thank you. I haven't passed too many synagogues. I actually went trying to hunt for one in Gondar because I passed a really charming, beautiful
Star of David?
I passed a wonderful, lovely little Islamic mosque because I like the architecture. And I went, boy, I'd really love to find a synagogue because I was told that there was a reasonably substantial Jewish population in Gondar region, but I couldn't find one. I'm not Jewish, so I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be looking for.
I'm not quite sure how,
But my point is, if they could, they would. So what do, they destroy where the bastions of your culture, they destroy major infrastructure, they try to destroy who the hell you are. And on the alternative front, they're trying to eradicate the real history of the country by replacing it with these sensationalistic fabrications, which have no relevance, which have no bearing to reality. So, and that should be enough. It sounds simplistic on its face, but if you think about it, a terrorist organization is trying to destroy who you are. That should be enough explanation for anybody.
So, I mean, I know we've discussed that before, but currently the country is going through the start of national dialogue. People have been released from prison, both basically, I mean, it represents everyone in Ethiopia, whether it's, the TPLF and other political organizations. So what do you see happening next? I mean, what's your thoughts?
My opinion should only be considered so far. As I tell people, I came here invited as an ally over the war. When it comes to the peace, when there is peace, it's time for people like me to shut up. And you guys can sort out your own peace amongst yourselves. But since you asked my opinion, that's my escape route. I have to preface this with this one thing. Ethiopians have a capacity for forgiveness which astonishes me. Menelik took the POWs basically from Adwa and marched them to safety. He ransomed them back, which was fine as far as I'm concerned. You come invade the country, pony up, pals.
Pay me.
Pay me if you want your pals back. And they did. And the Italian government got bankrupt and fell. And Europe learned a valuable lesson, don't screw with us, which they forgot only 40-something plus years later. So then we go to the second Italian-Ethiopian War, where Haile Selassie stands on the day that he came into Addis Ababa and said, do not return evil for evil. I think those are close to the right words. And he said, basically paraphrasing, he said, we want to be able to treat these people as friends one day. Let the invader go back the way he came. Let them, don't commit any atrocities on them, blah, blah. That is just boggles the mind. Given that they dropped poison gas, they had concentration camps, they bombed hospitals. A Westerner would not easily forgive. You guys do. I even commented to an ambassador once, I said, everybody makes much of the war culture of Ethiopia, Adwa and so forth. Nobody ever talks about the astonishing capacity you have for forgiveness. That being said, I don't. I don't have an astonishing capacity for forgiveness, but it's not my country. So the thing is, I have to go, okay, and I was very, very upset when the first news came out because I was walking through literal fields of devastation, of damage that my video can't do justice to it. It's just, it goes on and on and on. So these are men I will personally never forgive. Don't ask me to forgive them. But I'm not an Ethiopian. I don't live here. It's not my country. If you guys can handle it, if you guys can make it work, okay, back your play. Because I'm here for the country. I'm not here for a specific government or administration or something. But it's not in my capacity to forgive these people because, as someone else put it to me, first you have to be held accountable for your deeds, for your actions. Then there has to be admission and actual penance before you can forgive. So I'm not ready to quite join the pardon train yet. But if this is what the Ethiopian people want, if they back the policy of their government, who am I to disagree with it and say?
Do you think the pressure of the international community, I don't know, I just read an article that was written by, I believe as Alex DeWall, encouraging the international community basically to sabotage Ethiopia, whether it's through financial means or other perks that Ethiopia might have, to basically squeeze Ethiopia and to get Ethiopia to do what they want. So, I mean, is Ethiopia under the pressure of international community? And how much is this international community? I don't even want to say international community because it's not really at all.
Are you saying it influenced the pardon decision?
Yeah.
Or?
What do you think?
I can't speak to that because I'm not informed. I don't move in those circles. I can try to find out, but the thing is, I doubt I'll ever find a definitive answer. And ultimately, the question implies that we're asking that the Ethiopian government has no agency of its own. Of course, the Ethiopian government has agency of its own. It can make its own decisions. At the same time, the Ethiopian government has been under intense pressure for a year.
Yeah.
So who knows? That being said, my own response to the international community, my response to the international community is get stuffed. My response to Alex DeWall is get the blank out of here. Alex DeWall is a consistent liar and a hack. He has ties to the intelligence community, which he has bragged about in private to certain individuals. I know this for a fact. I can have caught him in lies, both in his published work and in other instances where he was relating the work of the individual who I call Yuhu Mulugeta, when he was playing spokesman for a TPLF member. Nothing Alex DeWall ever says should be taken in any serious form. A wonderful article.
I only take it in a serious form when I actually see the suggestions that he makes being implied by the countries that, you know, Alex DeWall and a couple of them have been influencing the policy towards Ethiopia, whether we like it or not. I'm
not saying he doesn't have influence. Yeah. I'm saying that Alex DeWall should not be taken seriously by anyone. A wonderful article was done, and I wish I could remember who was the author. A wonderful article was done on the fact that Alex DeWall was pulling this kind of crap in Rwanda. And now some new information is coming to light on Rwanda, which is making people go, oh, we didn't know that. Oh, this kind of changes our opinion. And he was in the thick of that, writing the same kind of articles, pushing for one perspective over another, just wall-to-wall coverage of making sure he was in several outlets. And then when he was caught out in his misrepresentations, He did a little mea culpa, and the academic community said, oh, that's all right, and he went away, but the damage was done. And he does the same for Ethiopia. You got to remember, this guy was outed. He's been outed several times. It's just nobody's ever caught up to him and really done a thorough job in terms of showing what a hack liar this guy is. There's a book about famine in Ethiopia where he basically admitted to the author that the humanitarian campaign actually, I hope I got this right, I have to paraphrase here, basically retarded the efforts at peace, if anything. And he was pushing for those efforts. He wrote a book where he talks about how the TPLF was on the people's side, you know, helping them economically, completely ignores a report in his book of which he had to be aware. The infamous reportage by Martin Plaut, for which Martin reported that the TPLF were replacing stores of bags of food with bags of sand, and were taking the money. There is no way Alex DeWall would not know of that. He did not include it in his book, so he's already a liar by omission. And he does it again and again and again. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to make sure that people know about this guy, because he has to be stopped. Because after Ethiopia, he will do this again to another African country. This is his career. I don't know whether it's directly tied in with the agenda of the U.S. State Department, but it certainly helps their agenda.
I know we can talk forever because we've only had lunch for like a couple of hours. So what is your advice to the Ethiopian people? I mean, I know you come here for the country, and we want to know what are your advices. You know, what are some of the things that you're proud of? Some of the things that you want to give your feedback, suggestion, constructive.
How much of an honest answer do you want?
We only want honest. We don't care to have anything sugar-coated.
I don't want to give advice to the Ethiopian people because nobody should. Somebody asked me.
I asked that because it's always nice when you come from the outside, because you're able to see things, not because we think Jeff Pearce is more smarter or...
God, Jeff Pearce is way less smarter than most Ethiopians. No, someone of stature whom I won't name because it was a private conversation over just coffee, but there's someone who's famous in your country. And they said, what do you think of Ethiopians? Like, you're loved and respected. And I went, well, I said, why should Ethiopians care what I think? Why should we care what any pharyngeal white person thinks?
I mean, if there, I think there's a lot of people who care about what other people think, and you always learn from other people, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what their stature is, what their background is, what their education level is, what their socioeconomic level is. I think there's always something to learn from another human being.
True, but the thing is, that's a very generous humanistic attitude. But from the perspective of, there are too many people who look like me who are trying to tell you what to think and what you should do instead of shutting your mouth and listening. I wrote in a book, which will be coming out soon, I said, the West will begin to understand Africa when it realizes it's not talking to a child, it's talking to its mother. And not enough people shut up and listen to Ethiopians instead of like saying, this is what you should do. And all I can say is that when Ethiopia and its people realize the enormous potential that you have, when GERD finally gets really rolling, my gosh, stand back, because you guys are going to astonish the world. You already have many times over, but you're going to blow their minds because you have food and you have resources that are untapped, and you have the potential of your people. And when that finally gets really rolling, it's going to be amazing. And I am living for that day. I want to see that day. But most of the time in my weeks here, what I have is conversations where people say, well, the problem with us is, and I have to say, there is no problem with you. There's a superpower which wants to play God, that pulls you out of a Goa, which wants to punish you for actually daring to stand up to a terrorist organization. There's a neo-colonialist system that says that every African who wants to go over for a bloody vacation or a business trip is treated like a prisoner, like a convict, like a criminal, just because they want to go on a trip to Thailand, or maybe they want to go see France. No, you might be a refugee. We can't let you in. I just spoke to a young man who wanted to visit my country. He got turned down for a travel visa, twice. All he wanted to do was visit. Why? Why should he be treated differently than me? I can go all over the world. Nobody thinks twice about letting me into Bhutan or Thailand or Congo or something. Why do I have freedom of movement than you or him? And we got to attack that. Somebody asked me, should Ethiopia have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council? Yes. Yes. Because why is it that we treat Russia and China, sometimes correctly, as international pariahs for being oligarchies and states that wage war on their own peoples, but they have permanent seats on the UN? Why doesn't Africa have one? Why doesn't Ethiopia have one? When we start to go after these questions and issues, when all of Africa gets behind and says, enough of this crap, you treat us equally. And the same way that I've said several times, Ethiopia was once looked to as the conscience of Africa, as a leader of the African continent. It's time for that to happen again, where you guys lead and say, this way we go. This is the new Pan-African movement. This is what we want. Come on. When that day comes, and I'm hoping somebody kicks it off now, soon, like tomorrow, please. So there.
Well, I mean, the movement has already kind of started. So are you saying?
I'm saying it's got to build even bigger. I want to see bloody demonstrations across this continent. I want to hear a noise which shakes the bloody columns in Washington, D.C., and the tower in Parliament in London that says, enough. You don't get to keep us stuck in a continent. No, we're not going to grow over-expensive flowers for you for sale when we could grow crops for our own people at home. No, you don't get to tell us who we can elect of our own government and tell us when to postpone our election, which, remember, they did. Mm-hmm. They said, you shouldn't have an election right now. Really? You're supposed to be the guardians of democracy, but you're telling Ethiopia that it shouldn't hold an election, for which you got, if I understand correctly, an 80% turnout, which beats the hell out of theirs and my country as well. When, yes, there's a movement that started, but it's really got to increase in numbers, momentum, urgency. Just every single day get on the headlines and say, our time now, our agenda now. Push until, because nobody hands you freedom. You have to take it. You have to take it. And nobody gives up power willingly. Nobody ever does.
I think that's the key.
Nobody ever gives up power.
To our entire conversation. You said no, what is it again? No one,
which one?
No one gives up power.
No one ever gives up power willingly.
Yeah.
They have to be told time to go. So these guys got to be. They don't like what I say because I know I don't want to swear on your show, but I know they're BS games. I know how the sausages are made in media, and they like to laugh and chortle and snigger and chortle and go, oh, he's sucking up to the Africans. No, it's just you haven't heard too many white people admit how much you're full of crap. And it's time to share. And if you don't share, sooner or later, somebody's going to make you share, whether you like it or not. I just believe it should be now. So.
Jeff Pearce, thank you so much. for joining us all the way in Addis. Cheers to
Cheers.
being together in Addis again. Our audiences, thank you for joining us. This is My Time with Jeff Pearce. I'll be joining you with another guest. Thank you.